Hi everyone, it's Mackenzie here with HashBasis, and I'm making this video because I wanted to review a new app that we put together, and it relates to being able to more easily pull data from Jupiter's DCA platform. Now, Jupiter is an app on Solana where you can easily make trades, and they have this feature called DCA trades, which stands for dollar cost averaging trades. Essentially, you deposit whatever token you want to be traded, and then it's traded into smaller chunks based on like predefined pricing limits that you set. So it's not one trade that's happening; it's lots of little trades that are happening across the course of it could be a day, could be a couple days. It really just depends. But we were having some difficulty here at the firm grabbing data for all these Jupiter DCA trades. One, because of the volume. Some of our customers have just a lot of trades, and the Solana Explorer Solscan that we use wasn't great at like being able to download all of them. So that was an issue we ran into. And then second of all, the Jupiter architecture actually upgraded. So up until recently, it was on, let's call it like Jupiter V1. But in mid-April, they actually updated to Jupiter V2. And so it's still trades that are happening, but the difference is that on V1, it was very clear to tell when a DCA trade was actually happening on chain. And in V2, they've actually obfuscated that a little bit. And so it just looks like, a bunch of normal trades, not DCA trades specifically. They did this just so that trades couldn't be as easily front run, something to do with MEV or like bots extracting value, whatever. So it does make the trades better for the user, but it does make it a little bit more confusing for us accountants here. So we built an app called Jupiter DCA.pplx.app. We used Perplexity Computer to build this application to hopefully make it a little bit easier to see all the ins and outs of all these trades. So the example wallet that we're going to be looking at is this one ending in G051. And here's what the account looks like here on chain. And there's just, you can see a bunch of trades that are happening. Now we're going to be looking at an example of a V1 trade, an example of a V2 trade, and I'll show you how we can tell on the Explorer whether it's V1 or V2, and then we'll show you what the data looks like on the app. So first example we have is roughly 11,000 HNT was deposited into Jupiter DCA to be traded into USDC. So this happened at the beginning of April before the V2 upgrade happened, and it's very easy to tell that a Jupiter DCA order is being opened here, pretty much because it says Jupiter DCA program here, and the tag here you can see says Open DCA. So whenever I see this on chain, that makes it pretty clear to me that I'm going to see a bunch of like little trades come in of HNT being swapped to USDC, and it's pretty clear to tell what's happening. But contrast that to V2, there's actually a trade that was opened later in April, so post V2, and this is a trade being opened, but it just looks like a transfer to another address. It doesn't even look like a DCA trade's being opened. And this was on purpose on Jupiter's part. Again, they wanted to kind of make it a little bit unclear so that bots couldn't tell that this was a DCA, so they couldn't front run the transactions. So this is actually a transfer into another into just another address, and then the trades happen from there as just like normal trades, not DCA trades. So we're going to flip over to the application here real quick, just so you can see what the different data it returns. So first off, there's two different ways to look up transactions. One is by just inputting the wallet address, and one is putting in the deposit transaction hash. Now, the deposit transaction hash, if you toggle onto this mode, only works with V1 because, again, with V1, it's very easy to tell when a DCA trade's being open. So you could just pop in that hash and it would return just trades for this particular, like related to this particular deposit hash. Doesn't work with V2 because, as you can tell, it doesn't even look like a trade's being opened here. So that's how we're going to look at the wallet address flow, but feel free to use the deposit transaction hash flow as well. You can pop in an example address. Now for DCA architecture, this is where you can choose between V1 or V2, or just auto, which tries V2 first and then falls back to V1. So we did V1, and then I just did last month and then click Fetch DCA Fills. Now, once the data is returned, you're going to see a couple of different things here. So one, you can download all this data as a CSV. You can download just a high-level summary. You can download every single fill, and a fill is just an individual trade that's happening within this DCA trade. And then we have a bunch of rolled up options. So get the trades rolled up hourly, daily, weekly. And then this particular customer was using Koinly. So we just, have an easy Koinly export here. So lots of different options. So for example, if you like aren't syncing your Solana wallet and whatever subledger you're using, you could always just grab the data here. Now this section here tells you how many orders, so how many DCA trades like overall happened within the date range. For this address during April 2026, only on V1 architecture, there was only one order, and 11,200 is what was deposited. That corresponds to this transaction hash here. And it's really helpful because it tells us basically that the whole order was completed. 11,200 HNT was deposited. That amount was used, and then overall 11,366 USDC was received. So this tool is really helpful, especially if the DCA is still open, so you can see how much still needs to be traded and how much you've received. And then this preview just lists out all the individual fills. So as I mentioned, there's like little chunks of trades that are happening. So overall, 11,200 HNTs being traded, but it's being broken down into these sub trades, like 133 HNT being traded for 142 USDC. Okay, and then we have an FAQ section down here just going over the differences between V1 and V2 if you are curious. And then when you do download the data, there's different columns, so you can just click on these to see what each of the columns actually mean. Okay, now let's click on V2 here, so we can go through the same flow, but then DCA architecture is V2. And in this one, we can see there was one trade on V2 in April. This happened again on April 18th. That's going to correspond to this guy right here, the 9100. And again, you can't really tell. It's a DCA trade, but it is. So we can see 9100 HNT was deposited and traded. There was roughly 8,891 USDC that was received. And you can see all of the orders down here. Now, the interesting thing about V2 is that whenever a V2 DCA trade is triggered, there is like an escrow address that is created. So this 9100 HNT is moving into this other address. And if you were to click on that, you can see that there's like, this is the address that contains all these like little trades. And so again, these bots don't know that this is a DCA trade. It just looks like a normal trade that's happening on Jupiter. And so what we've done for some of our clients is we include this escrow address as one of our clients' addresses, since it appears to be unique, like created for each trade or each like each root wallet that is sending over the tokens here. So hopefully this app makes it helpful to see what's going on Jupiter, especially the differences between V1 and V2. And yeah, what we've done, at least in practice, so what we do is we do sync in this this like escrow address that's being created. We do add that to, for example, Koinly, but what we're doing is we're just double checking all the data Koinly is actually pulling against all the data that our API is pulling, and just making sure that like the amounts deposited match, the USD received matches, and that the trades match as well. So, all right, thanks so much. Hopefully this tool is useful, and we'll catch you all later. Thank you.